Good evening, America. Thanks for being with us. Tonight, I'm Chris Stirewalt, and I am filling in for Blake Berman, and you are watching The Hill on News Nation. A federal judge ordering the Trump administration to end its blockade of emergency funds for food assistance for needy families as the government shutdown stalemate continues. 31 days and counting. Meanwhile, President Trump is said to be considering expanding military action against Venezuela to include strikes on land after weeks of naval attacks. The president talking to News Nation's Kelly Meyer just a little while ago aboard Air Force One.
There are reports that you are considering strikes within Venezuela. Is that true?
No.
That you made a decision on that?
No, it's not true.
Plus, FBI Director Kash Patel touting the disruption of what he says was a planned Halloween terror attack in Michigan. We've got the latest. And guess what? It's almost Election Day. We'll break down Tuesday's key contests with our partners at Decision Desk HQ and what it all means for MAGA. We'll also check in with News Nation's Brian Enton as he hits the road to talk to voters. But we begin tonight with Trump on his way to the winter White House after a busy week. The president again blaming Democrats for the shutdown and calling on Senate Republicans to nuke the filibuster to push through legislation on party line votes. That ratchets up the pressure on senators from both parties working behind closed doors to come up with a deal to reopen the government as new disruptions and insurance premium hikes are set to take hold. Libby Dean joins us live from the White House. Libby, what's the administration doing here?
Well, Chris, we're seeing President Trump actually pivot back to focusing on this government shutdown after that whirlwind trip through Asia. And now he says it's time for Republicans to go nuclear and change Senate rules by ending the filibuster. That would allow Republicans to open the government without Democrats' support.
The Democrats just don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's wrong with them. They've never done a thing like this. They've become crazed lunatics. The Republicans are very unified, they're very strong, and they want to do what's right for the country.
Despite President Trump there saying Republicans are unified here on this government shutdown, there are cracks that we're seeing form within the party on ending the filibuster. A spokesperson for the Senate Majority Leader, that's Sean Thune, telling News Nation the senator's position on the importance of the filibuster hasn't changed, and we have, of course, seen him previously speak out against ending the filibuster. Now, not only are senators playing the blame game, we're also seeing Americans play the blame game, saying they blame Republicans more than Democrats, according to this Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll showing 45% of Americans blame Republicans and 33% blame Democrats for this government shutdown. Now, despite all of that, senators have left Washington. They won't return here until Tuesday of next week. And that day, Tuesday, will mark and make this the longest shutdown in American history, Chris.
Thank you very much, Libby Dean. Okay, as the shutdown moves into a second month, Democrats remain focused on health insurance costs, while Republicans are highlighting the multiplying miseries for Americans without essential services. Today, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to continue paying for supplemental nutrition programs from the Department of Agriculture for needy families. That was after the White House held that it wasn't allowed to tap an emergency fund. Gets kind of complicated. But with us now, Republican Congressman from California, Kevin Kiley. Congressman, give me your take on the administration's position here. This is an emergency fund that Congress established, I assume for moments like this where there were interruptions. There's billions of dollars in there. The administration says we can't do it. Is that the right choice?
Well, from my perspective, people going without food benefits is absolutely unacceptable. And so, I've said however we can make sure that people get their benefits, that's the avenue we need to pursue. Ideally, by reopening the government. Short of that, by passing a bill to actually fund this food assistance SNAP benefits, which I'm actually co-sponsoring in the House. And then, if there's short of that, if Congress is unable or unwilling, can't get its act together to actually do that, then if the administration has the legal ability to do so, then I think that's a good thing. The problem is that fund, even if this court order stands saying that they are allowed to use that, doesn't even cover full benefits for a month. And so it's very much a Band-Aid solution.
So it would be better to save it for a rainier day in your mind, but if that's the last option on the table, they should go ahead and do it.
Well, certainly. The best thing would be to reopen the government, or at the very least to fully fund SNAP and give them an appropriation so they can use those funds to get to the people who need it.
Now, I noticed with my keen journalist's eye that you are here in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Very observant. You are not in Sacramento, California. Where's the House of Representatives, right? You're here. It seems like you'd like to be over there doing some legislating.
Right.
I understand Speaker Johnson's point of view that to maximize the leverage against Senate Democrats, if he keeps the House out of session, there's nobody for the Senate to negotiate with, and it increases the leverage. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. Is it time to reopen the House and you guys get back in session?
It was time to reopen the House 5 weeks ago. I mean, I don't think it was ever justified to cancel our legislative session days. And so it was just announced that next week, for the 6th consecutive week, the House was supposed to be in session and is not going to be in session, which means not only are we really, limited in our ability to do whatever it takes to get the country out of this mess, or to even pass bills like the one I'm co-sponsoring to fund SNAP benefits, but also all of the oversight hearings, all of the legislative markups we have, all of the ordinary business of the people for 6 consecutive weeks has been canceled or postponed. And so I don't think that's a matter of maximizing leverage. I think that's a matter of just not taking advantage of the opportunities we have to legislate on behalf of the people.
Okay, California's got an election on Tuesday, and the big ticket on the ballot is the Proposition 50, which is for retributive gerrymandering against Texas. Obviously, your district is going to be one of the ones that Democrats will target if this, as expected, passes. An interesting thing happened when Gavin Newsom announced this back in July. Republicans said, we're going to fight you. We're going to beat this thing. Kevin McCarthy raised a bunch of money, the former speaker, and it was, we're going to fight this thing tooth and nail. We don't hear that anymore. And there was this line I noted from, this was from Puck, talking about where the money went and where the effort went. And a House GOP operative said, Trump is looking at numbers, not members. They're expendable. That's kind of cold, right? Like there are a bunch of Republicans in California that you, Darrell Issa, we could go down the list of the 5 who are going to be right in the crosshairs when or if this goes through. You don't feel expendable. You'd probably like for Republicans to have stayed in the fight and spent a bunch of money out there to try to save these seats.
Well, there has been, a fair amount of money that's come in. And, the problem is that on the other side, there's been a lot more. And so when you have Gavin Newsom and the entire political establishment in Sacramento that is unified behind this, they get a lot of money from special interests and so forth coming in. So they've just been on the airways nonstop. I will say this. Number one, that even with a gerrymandered map, if this goes through, of course, I'm doing everything possible to stop it from going through. But if it does, I believe I can win re-election because I have a record of getting support from voters of all partisan affiliations by focusing on issues that are just of importance to the communities that I represent. But also, when you look at the polls that are going on right now, regardless of how people are voting on this Prop 50 initiative, people still support independent gerrymandering in California, independent redistricting or against gerrymandering in California overwhelmingly. It's just that the barrage of spending has basically, made this about something other than that. And so that's at least I take some consolation that folks are still against gerrymandering and support independent redistricting, and I'm hoping we can return.
And you've got a little more elbow room up in your district than some of your colleagues down in the southern part of the state. So you may have a better looking map in the end. Okay, if you knew, America, that Sacramento had been the setting for the sitcom 8 is Enough with Dick Van Patten, you would know him already. But if you don't, here he is, Congressman Kevin Kiley. We thank you. All right, now let's go across the aisle. Why don't we? Joining us now, also from California, is Scott Peters. He's a Democrat from the Golden State. Congressman, thanks for being here. Okay, tomorrow is the 1st of November, All Saints Day, which has sort of always been the red circle date on the calendar for this shutdown, because that's the beginning of open enrollment for health insurance. Democrats have held out on agreeing to reopen the government to try to force Republicans to make a deal around Obamacare subsidies. Well, we're here. We have arrived. Republicans wouldn't go for it. Your message has definitely gotten through, right? We see it in the polling. We see it everywhere. People understand, prefer Democrats on these questions on health care. But now the pain is increasing, whatever happens on the SNAP decision, but certainly for air traffic control on a bunch of fronts. So is it worth it to keep going once we get into November?
Well, look, we need to be talking. I've been through 3 long shutdowns. This is the first time Congress has shut down. In previous shutdowns, we had to be in Washington, D.C. We couldn't go home. They would call votes to keep us there. They wouldn't let us fly home on our government ticket. We'd have to pay out of our pockets. So that created an atmosphere where we were talking every day about how to end this. Speaker Johnson sent us all home. So I think as my colleague Kevin Colley said, we're not doing the regular business, and we're being paid. We're being paid, unlike our staffs, unlike TSA, unlike the air traffic controllers. We should be at work, and we should be talking about this. Now, whether Republicans would go for this or something else, we don't know, because there's been no discussions. Democrats have been very clear about what we want. We want to deal with this healthcare crisis that starts, as you said, now, as people are going to get notices that things are going up, and as SNAP benefits are threatening to be cut off. Thankfully, we have this court order. But we should be talking, and that has not happened. President Trump finally came back to the country. He's been in Asia while this shutdown's been going on. It doesn't seem like America first to me. But when President Obama had a shutdown, Citizen Trump said that the shutdown was a sign of weak presidential leadership. That's what we have now. So we need to all get in a room. We need to negotiate. I've been through 44 CRs, continuing resolutions. Every one of it has been bipartisan. Take it or leave it. Never works. It's not going to work now. Let's get in a room like adults and make a deal. As the president says, he's a big deal maker. Let's see.
Okay, I got to ask you about this Prop 50 business, too. So when we look at what's going on in California, looks like you guys are in for a pretty substantial win. If the polls are predictive, you're going to see a big win for the Gavin Newsom Prop 50 effort. But I've noticed in the conversation around this, and certainly from Hakeem Jeffries and other places talking about other sort of this payback gerrymandering, I'm hearing this charged language, especially the term rigged. I'm hearing a lot about rigged elections from not just the minority leader, but others in your party. That sounds an awful lot like what Republicans said in 2020. Is this helpful for voter confidence? Does this help people have confidence in our elections, number one? And number two, if they say Texas is rigged, wouldn't we have to say that under Prop 50, California would be rigged too?
Well, one thing about California, I would say, first of all, I don't like this process at all. I think it's something I don't want to do mid-decade redistricting, but I think we have to do it in California in response to everybody else. We are giving people the opportunity to actually vote on the maps. And I think I'm a fan of independent redistricting. The measure provides that we go back to independent redistricting on the next census. So voters don't have to do anything more to get that system back in place. I just feel like, under President Trump, I think we're really getting to the point where the enemy is the other party. We're not united against China. We're not united against Russia. We're not united against terrorism. We're all set up against the other party. And we saw this in North Carolina last term. Now we saw it in Texas. California's responding. I think it's terrible. Democrats support independent redistricting around the country. We had a vote on that. Not a single Republican supported that. I think someone like Mr. Kiley might wish that we'd be able to re-vote on that now, but that's where we are. So we've got to fight fire with fire. I think it's unfortunate, but we will go back to the other system, and voters get to choose whether to support these particular maps. We're not sending back to some dark room to be drawn. And I think that's the best we can do under these circumstances. And I think it's the right thing to do under these circumstances.
And I noticed you did not use the word rigged there either.
No.
America, if you had ever waited for an hour, been happy to wait for an hour in line at the taco stand in La Jolla, you would know him already. But if you don't, there he is. Congressman Scott Peters, we thank you for your time. Coming up, the FBI says it foiled a potential terror plot planned for this weekend. What we're learning and what President Trump said about it today. Plus, countdown to Election Day. We've got the latest numbers on key races that could be a green light or a stop sign for the Trump agenda. Scott Tranter from Decision Desk HQ is here. As the president escalates his undeclared war in South America, we'll talk about the military moves and the constitutional conflicts. We'll do it all. Stay with us. FBI Director Kash Patel says agents disrupted a terrorist plot targeting Halloween festivities this weekend in Michigan. News Nation's Kelly Meyer asked the president about it aboard Air Force One.
There's more details on the FBI thwarting that terrorist attack in Michigan that was set to happen over the weekend, Halloween weekend. The FBI
We're catching people before they ever start. Yep.
An FBI spokesperson in Detroit said there's no danger now, but many questions remain about the nature of the threat and the investigation. News Nation national correspondent Jessica Cartaleya who I just keep butchering your last name every time I talk to you, and I'm sorry, I'll get better. What is the latest on this story?
All right, Chris. Well, FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed that multiple people have been arrested. The White House is saying federal agents disrupted a jihadi terror plot this morning in Michigan that was supposed to happen at some point over the Halloween holiday weekend. According to the Detroit field office, the FBI conducted law enforcement activities in the towns of Dearborn and Inkster. Federal officials were seen searching 2 addresses in Dearborn today. Authorities have not released any details, however, about the suspects. We reached out to Dearborn police. We also reached out to the FBI to try to get some information on their motive and what the target may have been or who may have been the target. But both offices are being very tight-lipped about any further details. But in a statement on X, Director Patel thanked his federal agents and local law enforcement for working around the clock to thwart this threat. He said, "Thank you to the men and women of the FBI and law enforcement everywhere, standing guard 24/7 and crushing our mission to defend the homeland." With Halloween celebrations expected to draw big crowds, as we know, Chris, this weekend, officials are urging the public to stay safe. Dearborn Police and the FBI Detroit field office saying at this time there's no direct threat to the general public, but it's important to stay vigilant, especially when there are large crowds. The FBI is calling this an ongoing investigation. I'll do it for you, Chris. Jessica
No, I can do it. I
New
can
York.
do it. Jessica Cartalia.
Yeah,
I was
know.
ready this time. Sorry.
Hey, you got it. Have a good weekend. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. You too. Joining us now, News Nation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffindaffer. She's a former FBI special agent. Thanks for being with us. Why do you think it is that we have heard so little about the details in this case? Why would the FBI come forward with this announcement, but not the details? Does it raise questions for the folks in Detroit? How do you see it?
Well, how I see it is this is a new FBI. The fact that they're even coming forward with this foiled plot. There are so many plots that the FBI foils really on a daily basis. And typically, though, they don't let anything out about it. So I like this new era from the standpoint of the public gets to see who's being arrested and why, but they're not going to go into a lot of details. However, I did some digging, and we have a few more details. Ages 16 to 20 of the 5 arrested. Furthermore, it's right on the heels of that Army National Guard, Amar Saeed, that foiled plot. And in fact, according to some reports, that individual knew at least one of these individuals and may have inspired this attack.
Okay, but on this question of what you say that you've disrupted, when you talk about the volume of cases, the number of times that the FBI is disrupting these plots, should the FBI be just transparent and say there are people trying to kill you 100% of the time, or is there some merit in waiting and holding so that you're not stoking anxieties? What's the balancing test there?
Well, I think there is merit because, first of all, you don't want copycats. And in this case, very specifically, this is a bit of a copycat from what we know about Amar Saeed. So that's one thing they're balancing. A lot of these individuals really just seek to have the limelight and make this statement and be infamous. Also, there are specific avenues the FBI used in that case and in this case to foil this plot, and they do not want that released or to get out because then people will be aware that those are the techniques they're using.
Jennifer Coffindaffer, we thank you for your help. Okay, America, there's still much more ahead on the Hill. It's the home stretch from California to Virginia to New Jersey to New York City. What's at stake and how it's going with Scott Tranter from Decision Desk HQ. Plus, what in the heck is going on with Venezuela? We will get to the inside view on the military operations and the political blowback when we return. Now, if you don't happen to live in one of the handful of places where Tuesday is Election Day, you may be wondering, what is all this fuss about? Well, lucky for you, we have our friend Scott Tranter. He's the Director of Data Science for Decision Desk HQ. He's going to put it all in perspective for us, and he's going to tell us what to expect Tuesday night, because we're going to be looking to you. We're going to be counting on you. We've got these races all over the country. What I want you to do, brother, is just let's clip through a bunch of these.
Lightning round, yeah.
Lightning round. Number one, let's go to Virginia gubernatorial. This has sort of been the marquee race, right?
Yes,
This is the big one. It was a big deal 4 years ago. That looks like a pretty wide gap.
Wide gap in a poll that came out before this average was put there in the last hour shows that gap even wider. So I think this race is going to be relatively easy to call on election night.
You're feeling an early call.
Yes.
Harder to call. Here we go.
This will be the fun one.
This is in Virginia. This is the one. How much ticket splitting will there be? We see the inflection point there when the texting scandal for Jay Jones, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General, came out. How much delta can Jay Jones have with Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic nominee?
We're putting it at about 6 or 7 points. Anything below that, his lead is in jeopardy. This weekend's big. Early vote in Virginia will be big for both the Republicans and Democrats to see if they can close that gap.
So basically, if she wins by what the polls say, Jones could sneak in.
Yeah.
If it's closer, he could be in big trouble.
Correct.
Okay, look at us. Look at us. This is a rapid fire. Let's talk about New Jersey. Look at all these plot points from you guys. You guys love a plot point.
We do.
Okay, so this race I never believed the early polling out here that had this at 13 points way back here. This is much more like what we expected to see. But Jack Ciattarelli got within 3 points 4 years ago. What do you see?
I see a repeat. He's probably going to do better than the polling average suggests. The only question is it going to be enough to take the lead? Mickey Sherrill's probably not running as good a campaign as her predecessor, so this one could be interesting on election night. But again, Mickey Sherrill's in the driver's seat.
And her predecessor was massively unpopular at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Everybody knows this one. New York has heinous polling. It is very hard to poll the city of New York. We saw the surprise in New York City in the June primary. How much credence do we give these numbers?
I think we give pretty good credence, and here's the difference between the primary now. We have very good data on early vote, and the early vote is showing us that under 40 voters are voting early, and those are Zoe and Mamdani. I think this one obviously will probably be a pretty quick call, but I think you could see Mamdani get over 50. And the race I'm watching is Sliwa. Maybe he breaks 20.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Proposition 50 in California. Blowout. Quick
Huge
call.
blowout, yeah.
You're not.
Even the Republicans agreement, they stopped spending 2 weeks ago.
You're not sweating it. All right, here we go. This is also on the ballot. Right? So here's the president's job approval numbers. That's also on the ballot. And also, I will say, we're probably going to have a new change. There's going to be some change in this number this weekend because of you and your team. Scott, we thank you, and we would remind you that Scott will be delivering big data for News Nation's special coverage of the 2025 election starting at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And we will have some goodies for you in our trick-or-treat bag this Sunday from Scott and our friends at DDHQ. Join us at 10 a.m. Eastern right here on News Nation for the Hill Sunday. We'll have the first look at a new batch of polls from DDHQ that are going to tell us the climate going into these key votes. And that's not all we have for you this Sunday. We'll also be talking to Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, part of the Senate leadership team. We're taking a deep dive into different races. We're doing it all for Tuesday, plus our best in the business panel of journalists, including the great George Will. So be sure to join us on the Hill Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, right here. Okay, coming up now is President Trump himself going to declare war on Venezuela. There's a report out that says the administration has already identified land targets. And News Nation's Brian Etten continues our Driving the Vote series. He's traveling across the country, talking with Americans about their concerns. We'll check in with him coming up.
News Nation and Decision Desk HQ out in front.
Accurate election results faster than the other networks.
News Nation once again has called it first.
The difference is DDHQ.
No one has been close to News Nation because of DDHQ.
Coverage begins Tuesday at 7/6 Central on News Nation.
Welcome back. The Trump administration continues to tout the killings of suspected South American drug runners, blowing up at least 14 vessels and killing at least 60 people in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. But a new report says the mission may be going ashore. According to the Wall Street Journal, the administration is now looking to target Venezuelan military targets on the ground. News Nation's Kelly Meyer asked the president about it today.
There are reports that you are considering strikes within Venezuela. Is that true?
No.
That you made a decision on that?
No, it's not true.
Joining us now is retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Admiral, thank you for being here. I keep wondering, how much do we know? I assume this is naval intelligence is providing a lot of this information. How do we know, what do we know about the people that our military is killing?
So the drug dealers that we're seeing there, they have good intelligence, not just Navy and military, but the intelligence community, CIA, NSA will be collecting heavily. I have no doubt that the people on these boats are largely trafficking the narcotics that they're being accused of. Similarly, we have a pretty good idea of where they sit on the shore, you know, where their factories are, where they turn the paste into a powder for cocaine and things, and where they the CPOT, what we call the maritime points of departure, the aviation points of departure they use to move the drugs.
Okay. We're hearing some dissent in the ranks on this issue. We saw that the naval chief for the region left his post, and there were questions about that, and Democrats have said that there are sort of whistleblowers who say that they're concerned about the legality of this stuff. How seriously do you take that?
So this is a serious issue. Admiral Halsey, the Southern Command, the Joint Force Commander, resigned, retired, but I think resigned. I think over this issue. Look, this is a tough one. I did drug operations as a commanding officer of a ship. It's slow and deliberate when you're doing it as a law enforcement action. It is successful, but it doesn't kind of get it won't have the imposition of cost on the regime that the strikes do. But there's a legitimate legal discussion over the appropriate use of these strikes without knowing exactly who's on the boat.
As we talk about increasingly regime change in Venezuela, actions on the ground in Venezuela, targeting the Maduro regime there and doing all of that stuff, that's a big shift, right? And that's a big matzo ball to have hanging out there, the idea that we're going to be engaging on the ground in Venezuela. When we think about, I mean, I assume Venezuela doesn't have much of a military to speak of.
They do have some Air Force units, ironically, F-16s that we provided. They have ground forces. They are a military state. Mm-hmm. You know, they've had multiple, coups and defensive coups by the military. But, these ground strikes, I will say this is a lot more efficient way to cut off the drug trade than one ship at a time. That's the least efficient way. Mm-hmm. The most efficient way is to hit the drug production facilities. And I think you'll find strong support for that around the military, and I think in the national security decision-making process. And you're right, if the added benefit is that you destabilize Maduro and there's the regime change and the actual elected leader from last year's elections comes into power, I think that's a win-win for the United States.
The Maduro regime is appealing to Moscow, which has its own problems these days. Is there some chance that the Russians could provide some assets to the Venezuelans that could make life worse for Americans?
No.
No.
I just think they have too many of their own problems. And, we're the only country that fights long distance. We fight away games. Yeah. Very few other countries in the world can fight or support an away game the way the U.S. military can.
You say that you talk about your own participation in the past in interdiction efforts. U.S. involvement in Latin American U.S. military involvement in Latin America does not have a stellar history, right? We do not have, from the Bay of Pigs and a bunch of other instances, we do not have a great track record down there. Is this time different?
Well, look. You always have to head into regime change kind of issues with great trepidation. And in fact, Donald Trump has historically been a pretty strong critic of that. But this regime voided a legitimate election. As you know, the person who won the Nobel Peace Prize is, in fact, and who he has congratulated and supports. We support the opposition in this country. Secretary Rubio particularly has supported the opposition for over a decade. I believe at this time, this is appropriate, but you're absolutely right. U.S. forces occupying territory in Central and South America is not a stellar track record.
Okay. Admiral, we thank you very much for joining us on this Halloween. Okay, so what about Congress? You know those guys. Remember that? They're the part of the government with the power to declare war in the Constitution. Here's what the president had to say about that last week.
I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country.
Okay, with us now is Tia Mitchell. She's the Washington bureau chief for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. She is our friend. Where's Congress? What's going on? I hear Republicans increasingly saying you can't just do regime change and kill people and do whatever you want, but the House isn't in session.
House isn't in session.
And nobody wants to be the guy or gal who says, let's stand up for the rights of drug traffickers.
Right. And especially Republicans, it's not even going that far. We know that Republicans don't want to be the person to look like they're standing up to Donald Trump or questioning the decision-making of Donald Trump in his White House. So that's even more so a concern. You know, there was a briefing this week and Democrats weren't even allowed to attend to learn what happened. And coming out of that briefing, some Republicans said, you know, that's not right. We should have bipartisan briefings. We should at least let members of Congress know what's going on. So that's the thing. Even Democrats in Congress aren't even being told whatever the White House is willing to share. Democrats in Congress aren't being, it isn't being shared with them.
Okay, so on Tuesday, we're going to have all these elections. And here's one thing we know. That the people who work in that building, they are going to be watching these results, right? Not just, so let's say you're a Democrat, you're a Republican in North Carolina, which looks a lot like Virginia, or a Republican in Pennsylvania, which looks a lot like New Jersey. If you are one of these people, they're going to be watching the results. So we have this whole, and we heard from Congressman Kiley earlier in the show, we have a bunch of people from competitive districts who are growing increasingly anxious about a bunch of things. The Epstein files, we could go all the way down the list of stuff that they need to show that they're busy on. How do you think the results on Tuesday will affect the attitude of Republicans in Congress to say, hey, hey, hey?
So, because as you've noted, there are Republicans, again, not necessarily out front if their name's not Marjorie Taylor Greene for the most part, but there are...
She's out front, too.
She's out front, but there are other Republicans who are uncomfortable with this unscheduled extended recess during the shutdown. They believe that they should be here taking votes. They believe that the new Congresswoman from Arizona should be sworn in. So I think that if the results on Tuesday show that Democrats are winning on the messaging, they show that Donald Trump's unpopularity is bringing Republican candidates down, I think that will only add to the dissatisfaction among rank and file members of Congress. Now, whether more of them are willing to go public, whether more of them are willing to privately continue to pressure and criticize Speaker Johnson, who at the end of the day, it's Speaker Johnson who decides whether there are votes in the House or not. Now, Speaker Johnson, of course, is doing what he thinks President Trump wants him to do, but Speaker Johnson gets to decide.
And keeping the pressure on Senate Democrats, right? It does both those things.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's been a month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does it look like Senate Democrats are feeling the pressure? Not really. You know, they're not changing their vote. There hasn't been one flip in 14 votes on the House passed continuing resolution. I say Wednesday. When do you think the shutdown ends? Oh, you think Wednesday? Wednesday, Thursday? I think it depends on if Trump, I know he said today, you know, nuclear option, and he's not going to talk to Democrats. I think that if Tuesday is really bad for Republicans, there will be a lot of private pressure for Trump to get involved. And I think Trump is the one who unlocks this all. And Democrats are hoping he'll get in because then he can scramble everybody's omelet. Okay, Tia Mitchell, you're a good friend. You're good to be here. We appreciate you. Coming up, we're going to have so much more on the other side of the break, so I think you better stick around. Election Day is just 4 days away. I am a nerd, and therefore I am excited. News Nation's Brian Enton is out on the road, and he's talking to America's voters about the issues that matter most to them in his Driving the Vote series. Brian, where do we find you this evening?
So we are actually in Battle Creek, Michigan right now, Chris. We're back in the News Nation RV. We've been having fun driving all over the country, eating lots of junk food. I want to show you, though, Battle Creek out here. It's actually really pretty. The sun's about to go down, but you can see over here, beautiful lake here in Battle Creek. The leaves are changing. It's been beautiful. We were in Ohio. Before that, we were in West Virginia. We were also all the way in Utah. One of the big issues that everybody's talking about, of course, gerrymandering. And we went to like the epicenter of gerrymandering, Chris. One small city that is in 4 different congressional districts. Look at this. Mill Creek, Utah, population 65,000, incorporated southeast of Salt Lake City less than a decade ago. It boasts fabulous scenery. But Mill Creek is the home of something else, all 4 of the state's congressional districts. It really is crazy. Here at Iceberg Drive-In, they have amazing milkshakes, by the way. I'm in Utah's 4th congressional district. On this corner of the intersection outside the Starbucks, we're in the 2nd district. And across the street here at the 7-Eleven, this is Utah's 3rd congressional district. And get this, we put our drone up, we fly 1.5 miles east, and now you're in the state's 1st and final congressional district. Where we're sitting right now is sort of like, I guess, like the epicenter of gerrymandering.
Yeah, it really is. Just this intersection right over here.
How did that happen?
Well, it's a really long story.
Elizabeth Rasmussen heads up the group Better Boundaries. She explains that Utah voters went to the polls in 2018 demanding nonpartisan congressional maps and won. But years after passing, and those voter-mandated maps are still not in place.
It comes to how you're represented. And if boundaries are drawn in a certain way that makes it so your voice can't be heard, that's a problem. And so really every issue that people are passionate about can come back to this.
So we live in this little jagged, separated area that they've created.
Mill Creek voter Elisa Olson is an independent and moderate, while the legislature's super Republican majority has drawn maps that spread out the area's Democrats.
To me, this is just a blatant attempt to diminish the vote of our community.
It's not which party that's doing it that primarily bothers Olson, who's a member of the Mormon Women for Ethical Government.
It should not be something that is permitted. And the crazy thing is that the people of Utah agreed and voted for this.
As a mayor, I have a different attitude because I have 4 congressional doors open to me to lobby for things that our city needs.
The mayor believes Mill Creek's nabbed some grant money thanks to its supersized representation in Congress.
You know, being able to get 6 letters of recommendation from our 2 senators and 4 congresspeople is actually quite effective.
Come with me today as we journey west through all 4 of Utah's congressional districts.
Mill Creek voters are engaging, making creative Instagram videos to get the point across.
Farewell, Utah Congressional District number 1 in Mill Creek.
They want to show just how ridiculous it is that they have 4 congressional districts in their small city.
With tears in our eyes and chocolate in our cups, we have reached Utah's Congressional District 4 here at the Iceberg Drive-In. Also in Mill Creek.
Many efforting to buck the national trend and pioneer a new path.
But Utah is different because while others are finding ways to make the system work in their favor, we are pushing for the opposite.
Really is kind of crazy, Chris. You stand at that drive-in at that intersection and you can see 4 different congressional districts. As for our road trip, we're going to continue north right after we finish this live shot with you. Probably going to spend the night tonight in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Chris?
Grand Rapids is awesome, and Grand Rapids is also the swingiest swing part of Western Michigan. You are driving literally to the spot. You are going to the place. Do you think people out there are paying attention to what's going on, what we're going to be doing Tuesday night, and all of this stuff? Does this penetrate out there, or are they dealing with their own lives?
I think they're dealing with their own lives. Look, we talked to soybean farmers yesterday. That's definitely something that's penetrated. People are really, really interested in that and the deal with China. Crime has come up. People are interested in that. And then people are watching, I think, the mayoral race in New York City, very interested, and then New Jersey and Virginia, too. So it's definitely come up.
Brian Enton is out there in the wild, feeling the vibes of Gerald R. Ford as he treks deeper into Western Michigan, eating lots of delicious junk food as he goes. Brian, stay safe out there and come back and see us soon. Okay, now look. There are plenty of goblins in politics, whether it's Halloween or not. And talk about the trolls. Okay, the White House and California Governor Gavin Newsom trading some Halloween costume ideas this year. Let's start with the first one. What do we have? What's our first one? Oh yes, this is Donald Trump. This, you know, the Spirit Halloween gag, and this is the president saying that he is. There's no crown on it, but he's the king. Okay, but then what does Gavin Newsom have to say? Oh, I see. So he comes and fights back and makes fun of the president like that. Okay, we got it. Does it get any better? Let's see what the next one is. Ooh, gross. Okay, this is Gavin Newsom ripping on Kristi Noem, and even with a reference to her one-time story about killing one of her pets. So it's pretty gross out there. We would have to say that it is pretty gross out there. Tia Mitchell is still here. Very quickly, I wanna say, why can't we have nice things, right? What these politicians ruin even Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, it's the trolling, it's the trend. I think that Governor Newsom finds it effective. We know that Trump and the current White House finds it pretty effective, but I think there are a lot of people at home who want our elected officials to be a little bit more serious and a little bit more focused on things like the government shutdown.
Yeah. Okay. Tia Mitchell, the voice of reason and decency and dignity here with us tonight. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you as well. That is all of the time we have for us here on the Hill. We thank you for watching, and we hope you'll stay and watch Elizabeth Vargas Reports, which starts right about now.